to best explain the position I have, there's Marx, who laid down what Marxism is, then Lenin, who created the theory of imperialism, and then Mao came along with stuff like primary and secondary contradiction, and basically acknowledging, hey, revolutions never happened in the advanced industrialized countries like Marx predicted. In fact, it was always the more backward countries the revolution took place. Now, that would be the three primary stages, or the three heads. Like, you've seen the heads of the three guys all in a row kind of thing.
Yeah.
I am a subscriber to what we call the fourth stage. That is called, the problem is that there's no full unified theory on how it is. There's no fully formed ism, because no one has really formulated it yet, because it's still relatively new. For the lack of a better term, third worldism. Essentially, our position is that the first world is bought off with the spoils of imperialism to the point where they don't have a revolutionary potential. And in fact, in many cases, an equitable distribution of wealth across the world would be bringing down most of the first world. So they have no interest in revolution. Thus, they don't really care about it. That's why you get a lot of these, so-called socialists that are just, oh, fat, Bernie Sanders. Because they don't really want a revolution, because they know what a revolution would entail. I think the best way to put it is like this. Walk up to a $70,000 a year union construction worker and say, hey, man, here's a gun. We're going to go be guerrilla fighters. So give up both your cars, your house, your pension, and he's going to laugh in your face.
Yeah, you seem to have more common sense than most of the socialists I know, because most of the socialists are like, yeah, America is doing this imperialist thing, and they're living in the first world, and they're basically trying to shame, I guess, the people of America to start a revolution against their own nation, so that they distribute the wealth to other people. So it's like, okay, you go die on the street so that your kids will live poorly. And this is what I think a lot of Antifa are trying to push for.
Yeah, the problem with Antifa is that while they are certainly well-meaning and their heart is in the right place, they really don't have a scientific understanding of how to bring about revolution, which is a general problem that anarchists have. It's just state bad, smash state, everything will be fine.
Well, I don't know if they're well-meaning when they use like bicycle locks to crack people's skulls. I'm watching that.
But I'm saying from the perspective of building revolution.
Okay.
To me, it's the gap between men and women is less relevant than the gap between the first and the third world.
I see. So you're more like, let me see if I get your position correctly. You're more concerned about the third world, and you want it to do better, even if it's at the expense of the first world.
To put it in the simplest terms possible, the first world is not revolutionary because of its exploitation of the third world that buys a better living standard for its people. Thus, it is up to the third world to release itself from the shackles of the first world, and they can develop themselves. They'll have their own revolutions, etc. And the resulting crash in the first world, that because it no longer has its pool of cheap resources to exploit, will eventually end up going into a crisis. And it is theoretically in that crisis, people will acknowledge their class interests and then carry out revolution in those countries.
Yeah, that's a view I've never heard. I mean, if I look at Romania, for instance, most of our forests are being taken down by Austria, right? And Romania is losing at this. Obviously, there's going to be landslides. There's going to be definitely meteorological conditions affected by the fact that we're going to be left without forests. I mean, it's massive deforestation. It's not just, So the reason this is happening is because of corruption. It's because the people in charge have deals with Austrian companies, and they're like, yeah, we're going to give you some money. You just turn a blind eye while we do this. So I kind of see what you mean in a way that it is predatory, but the reason it is predatory is because the third world, or in my case, the second world, allows it due to the corruption that exists in the people in charge.
They set up governments that are friendly to those interests. And when you try to release yourself from that, you end up being attacked.